get started, I want you to do 3 things. I want you to download our lifestyle quick start guide. You can do that by scanning the barcode here or clicking on the link below. Also, I want to make sure you sign up for our weekly email so you can get these videos as they come out. And finally, there's going to be a link where you can ask me questions. I'm here to answer your questions. What is a low carb lifestyle? You know, any questions you have about transitioning to a low carb lifestyle or what that entails, please feel free to click the link below and send me a message. And we'll start each video with a few questions from you guys. All right, so what are we going to talk about in this video today? So what I want to talk about is just defining what defines a low carbohydrate diet and how that is potentially different than a purely ketogenic diet. Then we're going to talk about what foods are low carbohydrate and what foods are definitely not low carbohydrate. My experience as a dietitian is a lot of people would say, oh yeah, I eat healthy, or I don't eat very many carbohydrates. And they didn't realize that so many of the foods they were eating were very, very high in carbohydrates. And finally, we're going to wrap this video up by talking about some symptoms, just some things you might experience when you first transition to a lower carbohydrate diet. Because while this way of eating is so good for you and can actually improve metabolic health, there is a transition period. So I just want to make sure you're prepared for that. All right, you guys, so what is a low carbohydrate diet? So a low carbohydrate diet is basically defined as eating between 0 to 150 grams of carbohydrates a day. Now, for reference, the average American eats about 300 or 350 grams plus of carbohydrates a day. Most patients I saw in the hospital were eating quite a bit more than that. So what is a ketogenic diet? So a ketogenic diet is incredibly high in fat. So it's about 70 to 75% fat, about 20% protein, and about 5 to 10% carbs. Usually people on ketogenic diets are eating 25 grams of carbohydrates or less per day. Where low carbohydrate diets, like I said, are a little more loosely defined, 0 to 150 grams. People who are eating 150 grams of carbohydrates a day tend to be people that are metabolically healthy, they're not diabetic, they're not trying to lose weight. Often they're very active. Myself, I'm an ultra runner, so I'm running a very long distance. So I eat about 100, sometimes 150 grams of carbohydrates a day when my running volume is very high. For somebody who is trying to lose weight, maybe is diabetic or pre-diabetic, they often will do better with on the lower end, that 25 to 50 grams of carbohydrates. So what foods have carbohydrates? So most people know things like breads and pastas have carbohydrates, you guys, but a lot of foods have carbohydrates. Things like breakfast cereals, things like chocolate milk, our sugary coffee drinks like that mocha or caramel macchiato, juice, bananas, those things are very high in carbohydrates. Also granola bars, chips, cookies, crackers, rice, potatoes, peas, corn, all those things are very high in carbohydrates. Also a lot of sauces, people put barbecue sauce, teriyaki sauce, ketchup, a lot of our even things that didn't used to have sugars, like some of our ranch dressings and marinades or now have added sugar. So a lot of foods are very high in carbohydrates. And like I said earlier, most people say, well, I don't eat that many carbohydrates. But when you walk through their day, having cereal and juice and toast for breakfast, well, that's all carbohydrates. For lunch, maybe they have a sandwich, a piece of fruit, some chips, all those foods, that bread on that sandwich, the chips, the fruit, have carbohydrates. Then if you have a granola bar for a snack, that's carbohydrates. You go home and have chicken and rice, the rice is carbohydrates, and then a lot of people will have a dessert. So we're going through our entire day having lots and lots of carbohydrates. Now on the flip side, a very low carbohydrate diet, some of the foods that people will have include things like meats, beef, chicken, pork, eggs, bacon. All those foods are very high in protein and higher in fat. Also things like low carbohydrate vegetables, such as cucumbers, celery, peppers, all those things are lower in carbohydrates. There are some fruits, such as fresh berries, blueberries, raspberries, strawberries, that are much lower in carbohydrates. Whole fat yogurt, those things tend to be lower in carbohydrates, like the Greek yogurts. Things like nuts, cheese, cream cheese, and olives, those things are also higher in fat and lower in carbohydrates. So when we're following a lower carbohydrate lifestyle, we're going to be centering our meals around those things. So instead of having cereals, we're potentially having things like eggs and bacon and cheese. And we're going to go into that a little more in our next video, a little bit more specifics. All right, so those are the things that are much lower in carbohydrates. Now, once you're transitioning to a low carbohydrate diet, there are a few things you can expect. As your body is getting used to burning fat for fuel and burning ketones, there's a transition period. A lot of people for about, a week to sometimes up to 10 days don't feel great. You might have low energy, you might feel a little bit of fatigue. Some people get, a little bit irritable, headaches, muscle aches. But hang in there, it'll all get so much better. You just have to kind of weather that initial storm. Some people call it the keto flu. What can you do during that time? Well, it's very important during that time that you make sure you're getting adequate calories. This is not the time to restrict calories. And we're gonna go into specific meals that you can have during that time in future videos. But this is a time to make sure you get a lot of meats, a lot of butters, a lot of eggs, a lot of good, healthy proteins and fats. Also, you wanna make sure you're getting electrolytes. What are electrolytes? Things like sodium, potassium, calcium, and magnesium. So having an electrolyte supplement can be very important. So that is another thing. And we'll have a link below for SFuels Train. That's a product that has a lot of electrolytes that I use quite a bit and can be really good during that transition period. All right, so we've talked about what is a low carbohydrate diet, what you can do during it, make sure you get plenty of fluids, plenty of calories and electrolytes, and we've defined like what a ketogenic diet is. So you guys, in our next video, what we're gonna talk about is we're gonna go a little bit more specifically. We're gonna compare some low carbohydrate and high carbohydrate foods so you have some just really easy ideas for meals and snacks. So thank you so much for taking the time to watch this first video. Once again, don't forget to download that lifestyle, that quick start guide. Make sure you sign up for our weekly emails, and also make sure you, if you have any questions, make sure you click on that link so you can ask me questions, and I'll get them and we'll address questions in each video, beginning of each